Hello, folks. Welcome to another Flycast Partners webinar. My name is Rich Alongo, and I will be your host for today's presentation on BMC's Client Management. Today, our presenter is none other than infamous Kyle Hamilton. Now, Kyle has been with Flycast Partners for many years as one of our engineers here on staff. Been in the IT space for well over 20 some years, been involved in learning multiple tools within this space, whether it be IT service management, IT asset management, everything in between. He has helped out when it comes to business service management and network automation. He's very proficient in the ITIL processes and has been instrumental in learning a great deal of the many tools that Flycast Partners has been very fortunate to have in its toolbox over the years. So he knows these tools intimately, backwards, forwards, and sideways. So I want to encourage every one of you to ask questions today while we have Kyle on here and we have his time. Before we get started, let me introduce Flycast Partners. Flycast Partners offers best-in-class implementation services and training in IT service management, IT asset management, and IT operations management, enterprise service management, and workload automation spaces, all using ITIL best practice. Our professional service team has well over 5,500 professional service engagements, both on-site and remote. And I want to stress that on remote, we're very good at this remote side of things, especially during the COVID crisis. As an organization, we now have well over 1,100 regular customers all throughout Canada and the United States. And I encourage you to reach out to us at 844-FLYCAST, that's 844-359-2278, or go to our website and chat live with one of our IT experts during Monday through Friday, during normal business hours. They are there for you to get you those data sheets and white papers and training you're looking for and help you get into those events that you've been trying to track down or any other information you may want. Or you can email us at info@flycastpartners.com. Once again, I want to encourage you to please type your questions in the questions section of this GoToWebinar. And periodically throughout today's presentation, Kyle will answer those live for all of those on here today. Those of you that want to share this with coworkers, I encourage you to make sure that you ask us at the end for the recording for your questions. We'll make sure we get those links out to you. But without further delay, I'm going to turn this presentation over to the star of the show, Kyle Hamilton. Kyle, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you, Rich.
You're welcome.
And good afternoon, everybody. And thank you for taking time out of what I'm sure is your busy day to listen to me, basically, talk about BMC Client Management. Now, BMC Client Management is focused on providing you end-to-end desktop/client management support. Everything from, remote control, of course, the collection of details around hardware and software configuration, to patch, not only for applications, or I should say, not only for the operating system, but for a long list of third-party apps, being able to deploy applications, being able to track and manage compliance and policy. These are all things that are built into the client management solution from BMC. I'm going to start out here by showing that, number one, you can access this administration tool for the ability to collect that data, the ability to deploy those patches. That can be accessed from anywhere. So you don't have to be on the server. You don't have to be, number one, this is something that you can get to from anywhere. So if you happen to be at home, you could be at home, you could be in the office, in an airport terminal, on a couch, hotel lobby, doesn't matter. The web terminal is available from any location and be able to administer the endpoints from any location, so that it doesn't matter whether they're on your corporate network or off the corporate network, nor does it matter where you are in terms of administration. So let's say you've got users that are working remote. You've got users that are in the office. You want to collect inventory on those assets. So at first, it provides a discovery tool that allows you to sweep your network on a routine basis, on a scheduled basis, so that you can collect all the information that you need about everything that's out there in your estate, all your laptops, desktops, servers, switches, routers. So for all of those devices that client management provides agents for, which would be all your Windows, Linux, Mac OS devices, then we can actually deploy agents to those machines that can not only allow us to collect things like hardware and software inventory configuration, but also to be able to do things like remote control or patch or install software, uninstall software as necessary. So this initial discovery is designed to give you a master list of everything that's in your estate, at which point you can either deploy those agents automatically, or you can go through using the resulting list and deploy agents out to those machines as you deem necessary. Some you may want to manage, some you may want to leave alone. Now, once you deploy the agents out to those devices, they're no longer considered unmanaged devices, but they'll become a part of your topology, so that I can go in and look at all of those machines that I've deployed throughout my environment that have the agent. And for each of those devices, then it's going to give me some set of controls based on what you put into that agent, right? So not every device has to have the same set of controls. Certain devices may have remote access, certain devices may not. This context menu is going to let me as an administrator know really what can I do with that device, right? Can I remote control it? Can I dig into the inventory and look at the detailed hardware, software summary? Those are all things you control on a role by role or user by user basis, so that you can manage, what kind of access individuals have to be able to look at details for devices, whether it be around the hardware, software, or whether it be around things like the financial asset management, section of the tool, where you may be tracking things like cost and depreciated value, useful life remaining, warranty and support contract dates, things like that you want to be reminded about. So you can collect all of that data and manage all of that data within client management, and then control who has access to be able to see the hardware, who has access to be able to see the software, the financials, etc. Now, in addition to being able to provide access to the hardware software details, the agents also give you access to be able to look at additional information. So you may need to, in some cases, simply launch into a remote control session. Simply want to take remote control of a device, install a piece of software, follow the user along and see what they're doing right, or what they're missing, so you can walk them through something, so you can log in and easily see what's going on. Or you can also interact with the device through direct access tools, which would give you the ability to modify things like processes, services, the file system, registry, right? So if I need to go in and add a registry key or change some value, I don't necessarily have to pass all the screen refresh data back and forth and take full remote control. As long as I can access the registry and go in and change that value from 0 to 1 or whatever it needs to be, I don't need to see the screen necessarily to do that. So especially when you're working with remote users on low speed connections, this gives you an easy way to go in and make corrective fixes on endpoints without having to open up a full remote control session with that end user. Now, in the same topology view, you also notice that typically you're going to have a master server that we're logged into here, where you're going to be configuring, of course, the inventory schedules, how often that's collected, how often are we out there scanning for hardware and software information. But you may also be dealing with remote users, remote locations. So you can also install or deploy relay points. So you may have different locations throughout the environment so that if you need users that need to receive software or they have patches that need to be installed, rather than having to push them from a central point, you can deploy relays at those remote locations or remote points so that they can serve as a place of a distribution point. They can also serve as a collection point for data that's coming in that they're collecting from those endpoints. That way you're converting as much WAN traffic over to LAN traffic as is possible. Rich, do we have any questions so far?
Not so far, sir. No questions at all.
Okay, we'll keep going. In that case, now, once you've collected a solid inventory, so you've got good hardware and software information on the devices, in many cases, this information can be then populated into a CMDB, into your IT service management tool, whatever that may be, right? It really does not matter on the back end. We can feed all this collected information, all this hardware, software configuration information into virtually any solution that you need to. Now, once you've collected all the data, then you're frequently going to want to manage that information. And part of that management may be to deploy software. So you can create software packages to be able to deploy. You can use this to, build all the desktop and laptop and server software that you manage, so that rather than having to do things piecemeal, through CDs or SneakerNet, you can use the console to deploy those software applications to those devices as needed. And you can build everything from simple MSI installs to more complicated custom packages that may involve everything from running an executable to executing a PowerShell script or some kind of batch file, and then an MSI file. So you may have more complicated deployments. But those things, once they are built within this console, then you can apply or assign those. And those can be done by user, or those can be done by device. Now, we could easily connect to your Active Directory so that user and device information is available, and we can use that to deploy. So that if I want to deploy to a specific group of machines, I can deploy to a group of devices that I've defined or created within client management based on the inventory I've collected, like operating system version, or whether it's a laptop or a desktop. But if I'm also synchronizing with Active Directory, then I can call out specific OUs, specific containers. So if I need to deploy a piece of software to those groups, I can do so through here, so that the group and user management continues to take place in Azure AD or on-premises AD, either one. And that way, as those adds, moves, and changes takes place in the directory, then your software, your patches, your operating systems, et cetera, will update automatically within client management based on that group membership. Now, once you're talking about deploying software to an endpoint, then you get into then managing that software. So there are several ways you could do that. Everything from being able, when we talk about management, that can be as, I say simple, but it could be as, I guess, standard as I want to manage software licenses. I want to track utilization. I want to know how many I have, how many I own, how many am I short, how many do I need to purchase. There may be applications, on the other hand, that you're not so much concerned about licensing as you are to making sure that they don't run them. Maybe that's, blogging in www.facebook or Instagram or things like that. So you can use the agent to block out websites. You can use the agent to block out processes so they can't run those local applications, to prohibit them from being able to do things, whether it's globally or even during, a specific set of business hours you want to define, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
Kyle, we do have a question whenever you're ready.
Oh, go ahead, Rich.
Angel wants to know, will the relay automatically push patches?
That is definable. So so you can have it happen in several different ways. You could download that patch to your master server, have it automatically deploy out to all the relays that need it, right? So it's not going to deploy it to a relay if there's not an endpoint that's attached to that relay that needs that patch. So that part of that intelligence is built into client management, and that if I don't assign a patch to, client ABC, then I don't need to send it to relay ABC, if that makes sense. Now, once it's determined that patch needs to go to that relay, then any devices off of that relay, that are attached to it will typically receive that patch from there, or they can also receive the patch from each other. So that's when you get into multicasting and peer-to-peer, where if I'm deploying a patch to one machine on a subnet, or let's say I'm deploying it to all the machines. So I've got 254 devices on a subnet, and I'm pushing a patch out to every one of those machines. If I do that in a multicast fashion, then I start, machines 1 through 10 all at one time, and they start working. And as they start finishing at different times, it's always going to keep a kind of a queue of 10 working, and it moves through that subnet. And it's going to get faster and faster if I've got multi or peer-to-peer enabled, because if desktop PC 1 has already received the patch and desktop PC 2 has already received it and desktop PC 3, then if I'm pushing it to desktop PC 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. on that same subnet, I no longer have to download it from the relay. I no longer have to download it from anywhere. I can download it from the person that's next to me on my same subnet. I can actually download it from the 3 people that already have it. So I can take a packet from desktop 1 and a packet from desktop 2 and a packet from desktop 3. So the more machines on that subnet that finish that distribution, the faster and faster it's going to get, because it's going to start compiling packets from every other. As one machine completes, it's going to add it as another distribution source, where it's just another place it can pull information from. So that enables you to speed things up to the point where, the closer and closer you get to 100%, the faster and faster that deployment becomes.
All right, another question. Is there a way to confer which patches a relay has for the agents?
Can you repeat that, Rich? Is there a way to?
Yeah, is there a way to confirm which patches a relay has for the agents?
A relay has. Well, I guess that ultimately depends on how if you've set that up as just a true relay, The only way to be able to do so would be able to look into that file share on that relay that you've established. Otherwise, if you've got multiple installs of client management, in other words, you don't have one master, maybe you have a multi-master where you've got multiple databases and you're not just using a client machine as a relay point, but you've actually got another server out there with a database housing that software, housing those patches, then that's treated and can behave very differently. What we're talking about here would strictly be applied to where you're just using a local desktop as a distribution point versus setting up a preferred server or a file server at that location that you're going to use to distribute software, which is going to behave very differently and something you can control to a much greater degree.
Nope, no more questions right now.
Okay. All right. Now, when we talk about software deployment, the next thing that typically comes up would be deployment of patches. So it can also help you administrate, deployment, installation of patches on the endpoints. Not only OS patches, but a long list of third-party patches that can also be leveraged. Everything from Java to Flash to Firefox to Chrome, all the way to Yahoo Messenger at the end. And of course, it encompasses all of the Windows operating systems as well. But this gives you the ability to reach out to a much broader range of devices and applications than what you can do with most traditional tools, so that you're not having to use a mishmash, of 3 or 4 different applications to be able to patch, your Windows devices, and then have to worry about things like your Adobe products in a completely separate, different patch process. So I can go through and create an automated job within client management, be able to schedule that to occur on a regular time frame, and then be able to assign that group of patches to some subset of my inventory. When again, then I break it down by operating system type, whether I define it by, device type, laptop, desktop, whether I go in and use things like that Active Directory sync and say simply deploy these patches to my, marketing development groups, or a combination thereof. So I say, hey, deploy to all my desktops, give it to everybody in marketing and development. And then off it goes. So it creates a job that I can then now manage and track as it downloads and starts deploying patches, all the devices that are assigned to that particular group of patches and what their, particular status is, as well as a summarization of all the details, that I selected up top, so that I can have different dashboards that'll show me as things may be downloading and installing on one particular group. I may have another group of devices with another group of patches that may not be very active at the moment, but they're designed to be dynamic, so that that's going to change, of course, from day to day and week to week and month to month as new things get released. That's where you have your client management server, of course, set up to go out and download all those details and collect all that information on a scheduled basis, so that you have the ability to, do that comparison to come up with what's missing and what's actually installed. And we also allow you to track and manage the deployment of the applications, as well as the ongoing management of the applications. So being able to track software licensing, being able to go in and look at how many you own, versus how many are actually deployed by device, by group. I can assign those to the same groups that we looked at before. So there may be certain groups of devices that I don't need to track licensing on, but where I want to track, I need to track Adobe licensing for marketing, but I do not need to track Adobe licensing for IT, that type of breakdown. So you can leverage those same groups of devices when it comes time to, building your dashboards, being able to define, number one, how many licenses do we own? So you can come in and add additional quantities. It gives you the ability to come in and add additional seats. So if you want to come in at the end of the year, or, start of the year, and you add additional seats, that way when you're looking at your licensing dashboards, and that information gets reflected, in terms of what you own and what's showing as actually installed. So we can help you manage that software licensing. You can create dashboard alerts. They'll let you know when the software licensing is underutilized, or maybe it's over, maybe you're violating the licensing agreement. And there are ways through the integrations to be able to pass this to other applications, either, of course, via email or, creating tickets and those external IT service management tools. So that these are types of events that the client management agent can help alert you to and keep you aware of. Now, in addition to that, you also have the ability to create operational rules. Operational rules are a way to execute a series of commands on an endpoint, everything from installing software, maybe it's uninstalling software, all the way to other, it's not even more complex. Sometimes they're more trivial, but just day-to-day basic things. Remapping a drive for a user, restoring somebody's desktop shortcut, unlocking their machine, locking their machine, rebooting their machine, clearing their temp folders, or defragmenting their hard drive. Whatever those things are, you can build those out as operational rules within client management. Define what those, the steps are that need to be executed without having to get into creating complex scripts and things like that. So I don't have to be a JavaScripter or some type of a, VB developer to be able to build this. But it gives me the ability to go in and draw from a library of commands, whether I want to interact with the file system or whether I want to interact with the registry, right, and everything in between. I've got the ability to go in through here and without having to create PowerShell or bash scripts or batch files, and go ahead and simply put in my values and set up a sequence of commands that I want to execute on or a series of endpoints. And I can stack those up and I can order and sequence those so that once I've created those fixes, these are things that I can easily make available to my services staff or to my administrators so that when somebody calls and has that particular problem, it makes it easy to pull them out of inventory, saying, well, I want to execute this. I want to execute this sales share command. These right here, to remount this drive. I want to do that on some group of machines. And so this is where I could go in and if I wanted to do it across the board, I may say all devices. I just execute on everybody, in which case, of course, it's going to give me a dashboard of everybody. It's going to show me as everybody's agents waking up, they start executing those actions on the endpoints, it's going to start telling me which ones are successful, which ones have failed. But that gives you an easy way to be able to push out and manage devices and push commands out to the endpoints, whether they're on or off the network. That's one of the nice things about client management is it does give you the ability to manage these devices remotely, even if they don't happen to necessarily be sitting on your network. They may be at home or Starbucks or the hotel lobby, in which case, as I mentioned before, you can access the console just to administer those devices remotely. But I can also give access to users through a simple web console so that even if they don't have even if they don't have access through the standard console, then they have the ability to still have the ability to come in and be able to remote control or be able to do things like run a report for a given device, or in some cases, be able to pull up a compliance report for a given device. So if I've got a compliance policy that says everybody has to have their firewall turned on, for example, I can go in and define a policy that says everybody's firewall has to be active. It'll immediately show me out of my inventory how many of your users are compliant or not. I can go in and create a group out of that device, say, show me, create a group of all the people that do not have their firewall turned on. Then I can go directly into operational rules and create something to fix that particular deficiency. So if it's turning on the firewall, I call it such, and then I can go in and select from that library of rules to interact with that device, whether I want to provide the user with some kind of message box and let them know, what it is I'm going to do and here's what's about to happen, or whether I want to go simply straight to the action, or the activity, in which case I may just go directly to, changing the status of the firewall and not worry about the message box, and then be able to push that particular command out to a group of devices that I've used or created based off my compliance. So I've identified everybody that doesn't have their firewall turned on. I create a rule that turns all their firewalls on, and then I push that rule out to the group of users that don't currently have their firewall turned on. And you can set that up in a completely automated fashion, so that happens for all types of scenarios. Whereas you're constantly. Go ahead, Rich.
We have a question. We have somebody who joined a little late and they missed the beginning, and they want to know: is this a local agent install or a client agent?
There is a client agent required for everything except for the basic discovery. So of course you can collect hardware and software details without the need for an agent. But if you're talking about remote control, if you're talking about software utilization, deploying or installing patches, anything like that, we're talking about a local agent that needs to be installed on that endpoint for Windows, Linux, or Macs.
And that's all the questions for now. Folks, keep sending those questions. Kyle will answer them live as long as we have time. So go ahead and type those in there.
Okay. So the compliance module gives you the ability, we talked about number one, you can deploy software. So you can go in and use client management to create software packages like Adobe Acrobat Reader, or here's a Firefox install, or here's my Firefox install. And I can then push those out to large groups of machines. Alternatively, I may be downloading patches. That's where I can set up my client management server to routinely go out and download all the patch metadata, all the patch content, so that I know what's available. I can then compare that against all of my inventory, so I know which machines need to receive, which patches, which devices are missing which patches. And I can do that as one of those automated patch jobs that I mentioned, or I can do that even by looking in device by device, so that if I want to look at inventory, I can actually look at the patch inventory for a machine, just like I can, the standard hardware software inventory. So you'll notice here when I look at, let's take a look at client here. When I open up inventory, patch is a particular section. Now I can see for this machine, based on what's currently released, which patches are missing from this particular device and which ones are, of course, are already installed, service packs and patches. That way I can use this. So if there are critical patches that I need to push out immediately to one machine, then I can easily highlight those and just say fix those patches, kind of on demand. And of course, apply a schedule to it, whether it's immediately or sometime later, so that I can deal with things one-on-one versus deploying patches enterprise-wide if you're having to deal with a particular problematic device. But it gives you the flexibility to be able to do it either way. Now, there's also detailed reports and analytics, allowing you to pull, and grab key metrics out of the tool. Now you can easily define alerts, as I mentioned before, so that you can have automated alerts. Let me show you here what's typical for things like here we go. Things like new agent on the network. So we got new devices on the network that don't have the agent on them. So that means we got people bringing in, home devices from home. They're plugging them in, or things we don't know about. They're on our network, but we don't have the client management agent installed. You can get alerted to that automatically, get an email, get a ticket within your service management tool. If you have devices that have disappeared for some time, you haven't heard from them for 60, 180 days, you want to get alerted on that because they've disappeared potentially. That can become an email or alert or a ticket within the service desk based on the configuration, as well as any of those defined compliance policies. So when we talk about people don't have their firewall turned on, or they don't have this particular drive mapped, or they don't have their antivirus software up to date, or their anti-spyware software installed, all of those things can be predefined events, so that the administrator or group of those individuals can be notified when those events are detected, so that you can respond accordingly, whether it is a simple email or whether you go to the length of creating a ticket within your service management tool so it gets assigned. You've got a good audit trail of all that activity and follow up. Either way, this will give you the ability, through the ability to constantly sweep the network and monitor what you have out there, give you the ability to deploy agents to those devices, then manage them, either, true remote through remote desktop control, or remotely in the sense that you're remotely installing patches, or you're remotely installing applications, or remotely making changes to their device, so that you can use this as a an interface to be able to make updates to those endpoints that would ultimately feed into your CMDB. Now, Rich, do we have any questions at this point?
No, Kyle, we do not currently have any questions in the queue. However, audience, if you do have questions, go ahead and type them. We do have a few minutes left of this presentation, and Kyle is here to answer the questions for you. So by all means, type in any last minute questions that you have.
Yeah, if you guys don't, if nobody has any questions, I just keep talking. So
actually, here's a question: Can agents work through VPN? Can agent work through VPN?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Because I mean, if you're on the VPN, then of course you're going to grab a local network. It's going to see you just as on the network. However, let me a quick second here. I'll bring up a quick diagram that will show you exactly what I think you're asking about, which is how would you deal with external customers, which would be just like this. So we're talking about client management. This is basically what we've been talking about all throughout our demonstration. I've been working on this. However, and I mentioned you can have relays at remote sites and things like that, but you can also put a relay in the DMZ. That way, if you've got people in terminals and roaming outside, they don't have to be on the VPN. None of this requires a VPN. Now, if they're on the VPN, that's just the same as if they were, on the corporate network. They'll be treated as normal. So certainly those individuals are easily handled. This just frees them up from having to ever log into the VPN so that you can do the same things, but they never have to connect to any VPN to do it.
Okay, can administration groups of devices be created so they can be managed by different departments?
Oh, absolutely. So if you think about the ability to create groups like administration groups, that can be done on any kind of information you're collecting. So I could create an admin group that says, let these individuals administer every device that has SQL Server 2016 installed. Let these guys let these individuals administer everything that's got Windows 10, any build. And then I'm going to create a group of admins over here that administer only Mac OS devices. So any kind of information that you're collecting about a machine, from the memory to the hard drive to the BIOS, you could create an administrative group around that one attribute. Say, I only want these people to administer, Mac OS machines that have this BIOS version. It can be very detailed.
And it doesn't look like we have any other questions. Did you have anything more that you wanted to add, Kyle?
No, unless there are any kind of follow-up questions. As there are, well, let's put it this way. I've done everything from 16 to 24-hour long demos of this product. So there's a lot to it. This is certainly only scratching the surface. So if you've seen anything in the last 45 minutes of any need or of interest, please feel free to reach out, because there's a lot. We can only cover so much, in a brief 45 minutes. But if you look over on the left-hand side, you talk about all the different capabilities. You get into managing mobile devices, operating system imaging. This is a tool that's very comprehensive and goes on and on and on. So certainly reach out, if you have seen anything that's piqued your interest, and we'd be happy to, set up a call with you where we go into more detail and talk about your specifics and how this might apply to your environment.
Absolutely. And audience, I want to thank all of you for joining us today for today's BMC Client Management presentation, Kyle barely scratched the surface of this particular product. This product has so many features. It has so many different avenues it can go down and assist in your organization. So I encourage you to reach out to us. If you have any questions beyond what was asked during today's presentation, go ahead and reach out to us directly. Call us at 844-FLYCAST. That's 844-359-2278. Or you can chat with us live on our website, that little green chat box to the right. Yes, that is where we have people standing by Monday through Friday during normal business hours just for you. Get you white papers, data sheets, get you connected with the right people to get the questions answered for you. Or you can email us at info@flycastpartners.com. Kyle, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day for us, sir.
You're very welcome. I appreciate everybody's time today, and I wish everybody a great afternoon and a great weekend.
Folks, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us for another Flycast Partners presentation. Until our next presentation, I would like to ask that each and every one of you stay safe out there, and we will see you on our next event. Now, know that we have multiple events coming up here shortly. Sign up for anything that you might be interested or your coworkers might be interested in. And until then, have a great week.